Across our planet, there are still places where nature has never truly been controlled by humanity. Massive stone pillars rise through seas of clouds like the ruins of an ancient world. Lakes with unreal colors remain isolated in the middle of barren deserts. And volcanoes continue to erupt with boiling mud and molten lava across some of the harshest environments on Earth. There are places where nature still operates according to its own primitive and untamed laws. These are the wildest places still remaining on our planet. Dead Sea is a place where the human body can barely sink because the extremely salty water immediately pushes people back to the surface. In reality, it is a closed salt lake with salinity reaching nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean and strong enough to create extreme buoyancy. The water no longer feels like normal liquid, but instead becomes thick and oily because it contains massive concentrations of minerals accumulated over a very long time. Located more than 1,300 feet below sea level, the Dead Sea exists inside a deep pressure basin, surrounded by sharp salt formations and giant salt pillars rising above the water. Along the shore and beneath the surface lies black oxygen-poor mud, releasing strong sulfur odor. Most freshwater creatures swept into the lake cannot survive. Here, visitors often cover their skin with thick black mineral mud and soak in the extremely salty water, an experience where the body floats on the lake while directly touching the concentrated minerals of the Dead Sea. Almaty Ice Volcano is an unpredictable weather phenomenon that forms during winter and completely disappears when summer arrives. This ice structure can rise up to about 46 feet tall and is created by a high-pressure underground spring located deep beneath the ground. When the water bursts onto the surface, it instantly collides with the extreme winter air of Kazakhstan and freezes immediately, continuously building a massive hollow ice cone with steam still rising from the summit. The phenomenon stands in the frozen Keegan Steppe, where endless snow-covered plains make the entire landscape look like an abandoned ice planet. During winter, the area attracts large numbers of visitors and photographers who come to observe the rare sight of steaming ice erupting in the middle of a landscape that appears almost lifeless. Beside the Almaty ice volcano is a snow-covered road crossing the Keegan Steppe, following a turquoise river and winding between barren hills constantly swept by freezing winter winds. Fagradalsfjall volcano remained locked in a geological sleep for more than 8 centuries before the ground on the Reykjanes Peninsula split open in 2021. This awakening opened a new eruption cycle, considered capable of continuing to shape and break the region for many generations to come. Before lava reached the surface, the area endured more than 50,000 earthquakes in only 1 month, turning the ground into an unstable fracture system. Fagradalsfjall does not erupt from a cone-shaped summit, but opens through fissures stretching for miles across the rocky surface. Low areas around the vents can collect colorless toxic gases, putting anyone who enters them at risk of suffocation without clear warning signs. Across the newly cooled lava fields, the grey rock that appears solid may be only a thin crust covering magma hotter than 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, still moving below. Dakidum Emerald Lake looks like an unreal color palette made by nature, but it actually formed from hundreds of abandoned industrial mining pits. These giant open-pit mines were once carved by human activity, then filled over decades by salty groundwater seeping up from below. The lake solution contains very high concentrations of lithium, magnesium, and boron, creating a chemical environment that almost prevents plant roots and animal life from surviving. Its bright emerald, blue, and amber colors therefore act more like a chemical indicator than an ordinary natural lake landscape. The pools are divided by narrow salt levees, jagged and marked by the scraping traces of mining machines. Scattered around the water are twisted pipes, broken excavator tracks, and abandoned pumping stations being corroded day by salt mist. Mud volcanoes concentrate nearly 400 mud volcanoes, holding a record for almost half of all active mud volcanoes in the world. Although they constantly bubble and erupt, the mud here is completely cold because it is pushed upward by methane pressure from underground rather than by magma. The ground in this area consists of hollow mud crusts that can collapse at any moment and act like quicksand, trapping stranded animals. The entire landscape looks like the surface of a dead planet, with cracked grey soil and almost no vegetation. Lokbatan mud volcano is one of the most violent entities here, erupting in 2001 and creating a gas fire column nearly 980 feet high. However, in some safer areas, visitors can still observe cold mud vents or bathe in mineral mud under the control of local guides. Lake Hillier is an isolated pink lake on Middle Island, where life must adapt to an extremely salty environment in order to survive. Behind its seemingly calm pink color is water with very high salinity, enough to exclude most ordinary plants and animals from this ecosystem. The area becomes an almost exclusive biological territory for extremophile microorganisms, organisms that can survive in conditions most life cannot tolerate. Lake Hillier was first recorded in 1802 when explorer Matthew Flinders observed the lake from the highest point of Middle Island during his survey of Australia's southern coastline. The lake is surrounded by dense paperbark and eucalyptus forest, separated from the grey waves of the Southern Ocean by only a narrow strip of land. The law prohibits visitors from stepping onto the lake edge or entering the water to protect this primitive microbial ecosystem from human contamination. Serengeti is the battlefield of the largest land migration on Earth, where more than 2 million animals constantly flee hunger and drought. This is a survival march driven by extreme thirst and hunger, as more than 2 million hoofed animals follow the scent of rains from hundreds of miles away. In reality, Serengeti is a vast, dry grassland with almost no barriers, forcing the herds into a chaotic cycle where they trample over one another to survive. Every year, the Mara River becomes a brutal death zone, with around 6,000 wildebeest carcasses drowning or being crushed and decomposing in the water. This huge amount of biomass feeds the river ecosystem, but it also turns the water into a dangerous bacterial environment for many other species. Serengeti also has a very dense concentration of apex predators, from Nile crocodiles to leopards, and wildebeest must give birth to around 500,000 calves within only 3 weeks to overwhelm the hunting capacity of predators. Antarctica is a giant continent completely isolated at the southern end of Earth and holds the record for the coldest temperature ever measured on the planet. During many winter months, the region remains in constant darkness, while temperatures fall low enough to cause severe skin damage and shut down almost all air and sea transport. Along the continental edge, enormous ice shelves continuously fracture and release giant icebergs as large as small countries that drift through the ocean like frozen labyrinths. In this environment, emperor penguins still reproduce during the peak of winter by gathering into massive groups and constantly rotating positions to share body heat. Offshore Antarctic waters also attract white whales and other large whale species migrating through nutrient-rich seas around the ice edge. Humans here survive inside research stations built on hydraulic support systems designed to avoid being buried by accumulating snow and ice. Waitomo is an underground cave system containing tens of thousands of glowing larvae, an endemic ecological phenomenon found only in New Zealand. The blue light across the cave ceiling is actually bioluminescence from carnivorous larvae used to lure flying insects into hanging trap threads in the darkness. The entire cave structure is a cold and dark limestone maze, with many vertical sinkholes above it acting like natural openings dropping into the ground. Inside the cave, the ravines can descend dozens of feet, while underground streams at the bottom can rise violently when heavy rain pours down through the sinkholes. This space is almost completely deprived of sunlight, maintaining a humid and steadily cold environment throughout the year. To reach it, visitors must follow a guided route, pass through narrow limestone chambers, and travel by boat along a black underground river beneath the glowing cave ceiling. Iceland is a volcanic island standing alone in the North Atlantic, shaped directly on the tectonic rift between the North American and Eurasian plates. The island's surface is constantly torn by fissures and magma events that can melt overlying glaciers, creating black glacial floods. Inland, the F-roads are rough gravel routes with few supply points, weak communication signals, and snow closures for many months each year. On black sand beaches, such as Reynisfjara, the ocean surface can suddenly rise into large waves and sweep deep onto the shore within seconds. Some settlements, such as Grindavik, stand near active lava systems, where the ground can crack and damage roads overnight. Iceland is therefore a place where people live beside geological forces that are still continuously reshaping the island. Battambang bat caves witness one of the largest daily feeding migrations in Southeast Asia as millions of bats leave the cave together when darkness begins to fall. From a distance, the dense black stream of bats twisting across the sky looks like a giant living smoke column, flowing continuously from the cave entrance for many minutes. Inside the cave, waste from millions of bats has accumulated over time, producing strong ammonia odor and oxygen-poor air that make deep access dangerous. The entrance appears like a dark crack on a steep limestone wall, where the bats begin pouring out in an unbroken biological current. This exodus often lasts from 30 to 45 minutes, creating a rare spectacle that can be observed from close range. The cave system is located on Phnom Sampo, an isolated limestone mountain rising from the flat rice fields of Battambang and also linked to the Khmer Rouge killing caves. Richard's structure is the giant eye of the Sahara, so large that its full shape only becomes clear when seen from orbit. This structure lies deep in the center of the Sahara Desert in Mauritania and spans about 25 miles, so anyone standing inside its core sees only a jagged and scorched rocky desert. From space, it looks like an asteroid impact crater, but it is actually an ancient rock dome that was uplifted and then eroded over time. Its concentric rings are divided by rock hardness, leaving stronger sandstone and quartzite layers behind as narrow ridges. Located deep inside a sea of sand, with almost no paved roads or infrastructure reaching its core, the area forces travelers to use 4-wheel-drive vehicles across days of desert under extreme heat. Can you believe there are bays that can glow with a surreal blue light created entirely by nature, and that is bioluminescent bays? These blue light is not a romantic miracle, but a biological alarm system from billions of single-celled organisms when disturbed by external force. When the water is disturbed, they trigger a chemical light reaction to confuse and distract predators in the darkness. At night, a single paddle, boat propeller, or falling leaf can ignite tens of thousands of neon blue sparks tracing movement across the water. Mosquito Bay on Vieques Island in Puerto Rico holds a major record, with microorganism density reaching up to about 700,000 individuals per gallon of water. In these areas, visitors can kayak or swim through the dark water, where every body movement leaves blue glowing trails spreading around them. Komodo Island functions as an isolated buffer zone, protecting the final survival boundary of the largest lizard species on Earth. The island is surrounded by strong currents, making it difficult for boats to approach and keeping Komodo almost separated from the outside world. Most of Komodo's surface consists of dry savanna hills, where the long, dry season burns the grasslands and makes surface fresh water extremely scarce. In this environment, Komodo dragons maintain their dominant predator position through venom and the ability to ambush large mammals on the island. Some females can also reproduce through parthenogenesis, creating a new generation of male dragons even when no males are present. In the island's isolated villages, residents build tall stilt houses on open ground because Komodo dragons still roam freely and often appear directly beneath the homes. Monument Valley has massive sandstone formations standing alone across an empty plain, creating a burned red space that stretches toward the horizon. This landscape is the remnant of an ancient basin where storms and water eroded softer rock layers over tens of millions of years. After that process, the harder sandstone masses remained as isolated stone towers, rising up to about 980 feet above the desert floor. Hidden around the valley's edge are abandoned uranium mines from the Cold War era, leaving a silent risk of contamination in the soil and groundwater. The dry environment and lack of surface water make large vegetation almost unable to grow, except for low desert shrubs. Near Monument Valley, the paved road cuts through the red desert and is often covered by sandstorms, making the giant rocks appear and disappear in view. Galapagos Islands are one of the few places left on Earth where most of the territory still belongs to wildlife and volcanic islands, with humans occupying only about 3% of the entire archipelago. The archipelago is isolated in the Pacific Ocean, about 620 miles from the coast of South America, so its species developed inside a separated natural laboratory. The islands were formed from lava masses pushed up from the ocean floor, creating young, black, and harsh ground. On many islands, sharp lava, dry heat, and limited food force living organisms to adapt in extreme directions. This pressure helped Darwin recognize the rule that environment shapes form, most clearly through Galapagos finches with different beak structures. Marine iguanas and many animals with little fear of humans continue to show that this ecosystem evolved in a direction almost separated from the rest of the world. Cape Town is a megacity compressed between the giant sandstone wall and the cold, unstable ocean at the southern edge of Africa. This urban area is now home to more than 5 million people, with residential districts, ports, business centers, and mountainside communities developing tightly within a narrow terrain. Table Mountain rises like a massive flat stone wall, where cold clouds can spill over within minutes and erase visibility on the summit. The coastal waters are dangerous enough that authorities deploy professional shark spotters on high cliffs to watch for white shark shadows approaching the shore. Offshore, the cold waters mark the starting region of the sardine run, when billions of sardines gather into dense biological masses stretching beneath the surface. In this hunt, thousands of common dolphins coordinate in circles around the fish schools, forcing them into concentrated prey for a massive feeding chain. Great Australian Bight contains the longest continuous limestone cliff system on Earth, forming a giant wall stretching along the southern coast of Australia for more than 620 miles. The bay's giant crescent shape is the scar left when the Australian tectonic plate separated from Antarctica tens of millions of years ago. Along this continental edge, almost no rivers reach the ocean because the Nullarbor Desert drains nearly every source of fresh water before it reaches the cliffs. The land surface also does not slope gently into beaches, but instead breaks suddenly into vertical limestone walls, dropping straight into cold, violent water. This harsh geography has turned the region into a natural breeding ground for southern right whales, which migrate close to the cliffs to protect their calves from killer whales. The complete absence of safe harbors and the threat of giant rogue waves have caused sailors to view Great Australian Bight as a deadly sea zone. Taklamakan Desert is the second largest shifting sand desert in the world, where much of the surface is constantly torn open and pushed by wind like unstable land. The dunes here do not stand still, but keep moving, stacking into sand walls that can rise up to about 980 feet. Located deep in Xinjiang, Taklamakan sits in one of the most inland regions on Earth, receiving almost no climate moderation from the ocean. In winter, cold air from Siberia can drive temperatures down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit and cover millions of golden dunes in white snow. Beneath this dry, dead desert lies one of Asia's major energy zones, where oil and natural gas are trapped deep inside rock layers. Taklamakan also buried ancient cities such as Lulan and Nia after river courses changed and entire civilizations disappeared under dozens of feet of sand. Khao National Park is one of the most diverse ecosystems in Southeast Asia, about 160 million years old and biologically older than the Amazon rainforest. The ancient forest here is split open by thousands of solid limestone towers, jagged like giant fangs, rising through dense canopy layers. At the center of the forest lies Chio Lan Lake, a valley permanently flooded after the construction of a hydroelectric dam. Beneath dozens of feet of water are the remains of villages that once held hundreds of households before the area was flooded and turned into a reservoir. The only way to stay inside this flooded valley is on floating raft houses on the lake surface, almost separated from the power grid and modern phone signals. Khao Sok is also the territory of the corpse flower, a parasitic plant without clear leaves, roots, or stems, feeding from rainforest vines and blooming into a large red flower that releases the smell of rotting flesh. Shirakawa-go is a clear example of how humans built survival infrastructure in one of the harshest snowfall regions in Japan. The valley is surrounded by dense cedar and pine forests where winter covers everything in white snow while spring and autumn shift into fresh green or deep orange-red colors. In that environment, the large houses were built entirely without metal nails, with thatched roofs angled at about 60 degrees so heavy snow can slide down naturally. When snowfall becomes deep enough to bury almost the entire first floor under about 10 feet of snow, residents sometimes have to dig passages through the snow to move between houses. To prevent fire in the dense wooden village, Shirakawa-go operates an underground water cannon system that can spray high-pressure water across the whole area during emergencies. People here survive through farming, tourism, and traditional textile crafts inside a valley often isolated by long-lasting snow. Okavango Delta is the largest inland wetland on Earth, where a massive river flows into the desert and disappears instead of reaching the ocean. Each year, about 11 trillion liters of water enter this tectonic basin, but most of it eventually evaporates, gets absorbed by roots, or sinks into the dry sands of the Kalahari Desert. From above, the delta appears like a giant emerald green network, completely surrounded by grey desert sand. Nearly 70% of the islands here were actually formed by giant termite mounds growing over generations rather than by normal geological activity. In this flooded environment, Okavango lions evolved the ability to swim across deep channels while hunting buffalo and warthogs on isolated islands. Large hippopotamus groups also plow through the muddy bottom and open new waterways, unintentionally changing the flow of the entire delta. Masada National Park is a World Heritage Site in a harsh desert, preserving one of the clearest ancient military siege systems ever built on isolated terrain. This fortress was not originally built to resist foreign invasion, but as a refuge created by King Herod the Great when he feared being assassinated by his own people. Masada is a diamond-shaped mesa with a flat summit of about 44 acres, cut off from the surrounding land by nearly vertical cliffs. The most notable natural approach on the eastern side is the Snake Path, a narrow, steep, and winding limestone trail clinging to the mountain as the main route to the top. After being forgotten for more than 1,500 years, the site was identified again by American explorers in 1838. In summer, Masada's grey rock surface can heat up to about 122 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the fortress summit into an exposed stone platform with almost no shade for humans to shelter under. Zhangjiajie has more than 3,000 vertical sandstone pillars, forming the largest primitive quartz sandstone forest in the world. On its steep cliff peaks, many ecological zones are completely isolated and still preserve primitive plant genes from the Ice Age. The area often faces sudden weather changes, as dense fog can cover the entire stone forest within minutes and remove almost all visibility. At the canyon floor, dense primary forest traps heavy humidity, while interlocked canopies prevent most sunlight from reaching the ground. On the steep cliffs, wild Tibetan macaques live among narrow rock ledges and move by strong survival instinct. To reach this place, you must pass 99 narrow mountain road bends attached to the cliff, where one side is vertical rock and the other is a deep valley, often hidden by fog. Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical primary forest on Earth and also one of the most suffocating and brutal survival environments in nature. Its dense canopy layers interlock so tightly that they block almost all sunlight, leaving the forest floor trapped in permanent humidity and darkness, even at midday. During the rainy season, water levels can rise up to about 49 feet and flood hundreds of thousands of square miles of rainforest, forcing land animals to climb trees or drown beneath the muddy water. This ecosystem is also home to the pink boto dolphin that hunts through flooded root labyrinths and the electric eel capable of releasing shocks up to 860 volts. Across the water surface, the giant Victoria amazonica water lily can spread nearly 10 feet wide, while sharp spines beneath the leaves defend its territory. Deep inside the core of the Amazon, dozens of isolated tribes still survive with little or no contact with the modern world. Madagascar was isolated in the Indian Ocean about 165 million years ago, turning the island into a closed biological laboratory. More than 90% of the animals and plants here cannot be found anywhere else on Earth. Across cracked, dry lands, distorted baobab trunks swell like giant water towers and rise alone like upside-down roots. In Singi, tens of thousands of limestone towers have been eroded by acidic rain over millions of years into sharp stone blades like a natural fortress. This long isolation also created strange creatures such as the eye, a species whose middle finger evolved into a thin, elongated structure resembling a dry bone through extreme natural selection. Much of Madagascar's surface is erosion-prone red laterite soil, So after tropical storms, millions of tons of red mud can be washed into the ocean. Aurora borealis is an extreme atmospheric optical phenomenon, suspended in the sky and locked within the geographic belt around the Arctic. The luminous light stretching across the night is not a quiet miracle, but the result of charged particles from the sun colliding with Earth's atmosphere. In the far northern tundra, winter can leave the frozen ground in darkness for months, creating a deep black background for the neon light bands. Aurora colors are divided by atmospheric reactions, with green light often appearing when energetic particles collide with oxygen at high altitude. The energy released by a major aurora display can equal the force of a magnitude 5.5 earthquake. To witness this phenomenon, people must enter the core of winter in remote tundra regions, where snowstorms and extreme cold often come with long-lasting darkness. Madeira stands alone in the North Atlantic, where the exposed island is only the summit of a giant shield volcano buried deep beneath the ocean floor. Most of the island's true mass lies beneath the ocean, making Madeira feel like a wild land lifted from dark and deep water. Along the island's edge, the cliffs of Cabo Girao rise about 1,900 feet straight above the ocean, causing Atlantic waves to crash almost directly against the base of the rock wall. Inland, Laurisilva forest clings to deep valleys, where fog and humidity keep the landscape primitive and isolated. To survive in this terrain, humans built the levadas system to carry water across mountains, valleys, and dangerous cliffs. The old Antigua ER 101 route shows Madeira's harshness clearly, as the coastal road was cut into the cliff with the ocean abyss on one side and falling rock on the other. Katmai National Park is a wilderness region with the highest density of wild brown bears on Earth, where more than 2,200 animals dominate the landscape of Alaska. Before the freezing winter arrives, the bears enter an extreme feeding phase, with one adult capable of consuming nearly 100 pounds of salmon each day to build fat for hibernation. At the center of this hunt is Brooks Falls, a waterfall about 6 feet high where millions of sockeye salmon are forced to leap from the water during their upstream migration. This natural bottleneck turns the river into a biological killing zone, packing dozens of giant bears tightly together as they wait for fish to launch directly toward them. The entire park covers more than 4 million acres with almost no paved roads, containing only swamps, taiga forest, and remote glacial valleys. Beneath this wilderness lie at least 14 active volcanoes that still threaten to unleash volcanic mud floods, capable of tearing through entire valleys. Ho-Sil is one of the largest wilderness regions on Earth, with no permanent human settlement. This land stands at an average elevation of about 15,700 feet, where thin air allows water to boil at around 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Across Ho-Sil's grey and yellow alpine plains, dense networks of saltwater and freshwater lakes spread through the frozen landscape from Kunlun Mountain Glacier melt. During summer, thin surface ice melts and turns many areas into thick swamps capable of swallowing off road trucks or large animals within a short time. Every year, tens of thousands of pregnant Tibetan antelopes migrate hundreds of miles across this harsh terrain to give birth near Zonag Lake. There are places on Earth that make people stop and question whether they are even real. Not because they are remote, but because their forms and conditions go far beyond what we normally understand about the natural world. Some structures appear in locations where they should not exist. Isolated rock formations stand alone in vast, empty space. And certain environments are so extreme that human survival depends on adapting to every small detail. Nature has created places that seem to defy everything humans thought they understood. Today, we explore the most unbelievable wonders on Earth, places where reality goes far beyond what we once believed was possible. Mendenhall ice caves form beneath a glacier approximately 13 miles long in Alaska and rank among the most photographed and studied sites documenting global ice loss. Beneath this massive moving body of ice that continuously erodes the landscape, the caves have no fixed shape or coordinates and repeatedly collapse, melt, and reform within weeks. This rapid transformation makes each ice chamber temporary, directly reflecting the instability of the glacier system itself. The intense sapphire blue light inside does not originate from an internal source, but from dense ice absorbing most visible wavelengths and reflecting primarily blue light. Inside the chambers, cracking sounds and flowing water echo constantly as millions of tons of ice shift and hollow out their own structure. Ramu Quarry is a rare site where the entire infrastructure of a Soviet-era prison and mining complex remains preserved beneath a lake. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, groundwater pumps stopped operating, allowing water to rise rapidly and submerge machinery, lighting systems, and heavy extraction equipment in place. This sudden flooding effectively froze the site in time, leaving prison blocks and industrial structures intact under the surface. Above water, the landscape splits between a stark white ash hill and a deep turquoise lake, whose clarity is enhanced by natural limestone filtration. Because of this exceptional visibility, divers can clearly see barred windows, submerged corridors, and moss-covered excavators resting on the lake bed. In winter, when the surface freezes into transparent ice, the lake becomes a natural glass layer suspended directly above the drowned rooftops and ruins below. Populous Euphratica Forest is the largest protected Euphrates poplar reserve in the world, forming a survival belt across saline soils and arid desert terrain. These extreme conditions drive a unique adaptation in which leaves on the same tree shift from narrow willow-like shapes near the base to oval forms mid-trunk and broad-lobed shapes at the crown to balance water loss and sunlight absorption. Because the trees grow in salty ground, excess salt is expelled through the bark where white sap seeps out and crystallizes visibly on the surface. To secure water, the main root can reach depths of about 33 feet, while lateral roots extend hundreds of feet outward in search of scarce groundwater. This biological structure allows even dead trunks to remain upright for centuries, creating a landscape where living forest stands beside twisted wooden pillars. The golden foliage season lasts only about 10 to 20 days each year, and a single early frost can strip the canopy overnight, reinforcing the local saying that it lives for 1,000 years, stands for 1,000 more after death, and resists decay for another 1,000. Diavik is one of the highest value diamond mines in the world by average price per carat, known for producing stones of exceptional whiteness and clarity in Canada's Northwest Territories. The mine is not located on ordinary mainland, but on East Island in Lac de Gras, where engineers built massive rock dikes within the lake to create dry mining pits instead of draining the entire body of water. More than 5 million tons of rock were placed into the lake to construct these containment structures, transforming open water into an icy by moss and stone. During winter, which dominates most of the year, the entire landscape turns white under snow and ice, while operations continue in extreme sub-zero temperatures. Because of its remote location, Diavik operates a 1-mile-long gravel runway capable of receiving large passenger jets such as the Boeing 737, runs one of the world's first large-scale wind farms designed for Arctic conditions, and plans to close around 2029, when the dikes will be removed and the lake allowed to refill the pits. Hegra is one of the largest and most intact open-air archaeological sites of the Nabatean civilization, containing 111 tombs carved into sandstone desert formations. "94 of these tombs feature elaborate facades created by carving from the top downward, using only hand tools, requiring precise proportional planning from the very beginning. Because of the extremely arid Arabian climate, sculpted details such as eagles, sphinxes, and columns remain sharply preserved for centuries. The site also preserves a dense collection of Nabatean and pre-Islamic inscriptions that provide direct evidence of ancient legal codes and property ownership. The most distinctive monument is Qasr al-Farid, a 4-story monolithic tomb standing isolated in the desert that was never completed and never used for burial. Many facades still display carved legal warnings and curses in Nabatean script, explicitly forbidding trespass or resale of the tombs. Phra Nakhon Cave is considered one of the most visually striking natural lighting caves in the world due to the precise alignment between its skylights and the Kuha Karuhas Pavilion, producing a focused spotlight effect at a specific hour each day. The ceiling collapsed centuries ago, creating two massive skylights that allow sunlight and rain to fall directly into the chamber, transforming the enclosed space into a semi-open ecosystem. Because of this consistent light source, a dense green forest patch thrives at the cave floor, forming a sharp contrast against the surrounding grey limestone walls. Trees inside the cave grow elongated and curved, leaning noticeably toward the skylights to maximize light absorption in a limited environment. The rock walls still preserve engraved signatures of King Rama V and King Rama VII, confirming the site's historical significance within the Thai royal legacy. The Kuha Karuhas Pavilion was fully crafted in Bangkok, dismantled, transported by sea, and manually carried up the mountain for reassembly inside the cave in 1890, serving solely as a royal tea resting point. In the desolate highlands of Russia, the 7 giant Manpupuner rock formations rise majestically as living testaments to a geological process spanning 200 million years. These natural sculptures are the result of relentless weathering by wind and ice, leaving behind the hardest rock cores with bizarre shapes that seem to defy gravity. In winter, a coating of frost transforms them into massive white ghosts, standing guard amidst the frigid atmosphere and complete isolation from the outside world. To the indigenous people, this is not merely a landscape, but a forbidden sanctuary where only powerful shamans were permitted to approach for mystical rituals. The most impressive feature lies in their arrangement, where 6 columns stand in a defensive cluster facing a solitary leader rock, creating a dramatic confrontation set within nature's grandeur. Serengeti National Park is one of the largest and oldest remaining savanna ecosystems, extending from northern Tanzania into southwestern Kenya. Its vast flat terrain results from ancient volcanic ash that filled jungles, forming the Maasai term Serengeti, meaning land that stretches endlessly. Across this grassland, more than 2 million wildebeest, zebras, and gazelles migrate each year in a closed survival cycle. Wildebeest function as ecosystem engineers because their trampling, grazing, and waste distribution regulate vegetation structure and fire patterns. Billions of dung beetles process roughly 75% of daily waste, burying it and recycling nutrients back into the soil. About 250,000 wildebeest die annually during migration, and their carcasses sustain scavengers, predators, and microorganisms that power the entire food web. Salt evaporation pools sit at the lowest exposed land elevation on Earth, where humans can walk on dry ground within a vast industrial salt basin system. The water shifts from turquoise to green or deep red, depending on mineral concentration and evaporation stage. Continuous evaporation causes salt to crystallize and accumulate, raising the lakebed by about 8 inches per year and forcing embankments to be elevated to protect the Ainbokek Resort, located beside pool number 5. Visitors are in fact bathing in a tightly regulated evaporation pond rather than in a natural untouched sea. It is possible to wade into the water and stand on mushroom-shaped formations built entirely from pure salt crystallized upward from the bottom. From above, long earthen dikes divide the surface into massive geometric grids, and within the vast salt field stands a small salt island where a local artist installed a dead tree as an environmental art piece. Can you believe there is a place where massive waterfalls look like they were frozen into white stone right under the burning sun? This is Hierva el Agua in Mexico, where mineral-rich water has spent thousands of years building towering cliffs nearly 200 feet high. Even though its name means boiling water, because of the bubbles popping up from the ground, you will actually soak in cool water at about 77 degrees Fahrenheit. These natural infinity pools sitting right on the edge of a deep canyon were once sacred sites with ancient water systems built 25 centuries ago. The strangest part is that the lime levels in the water are so high they petrify any fallen branches or leaves, turning them into solid stone forever. Old Dueño Lengai volcano is the only volcano on Earth that erupts nitrocarbonatite lava capable of changing from black to white within hours after exposure to air and moisture. This chemical composition also makes it the coldest lava ever recorded, with temperatures around 900 to 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly half that of typical basaltic lava. Because of its extremely low viscosity, the lava flows rapidly like liquid water, forming thin cascades instead of thick, slow-moving masses, and in rare cases, people have survived direct contact despite severe burns. At the summit crater, erupting material repeatedly builds Hornito towers, yet their fragile structure causes them to collapse within days. At night, the lava does not glow brightly, but emits only a faint red light from deep fissures. When heavy rain falls, the highly soluble volcanic material erodes quickly, allowing the summit landscape to change shape almost immediately. Tugela is a prominent natural system within the Drakensberg range of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, integrating Tugela Falls and the Tugela River into a unified hydrological structure. Tugela Falls is recognized as the highest waterfall in Africa, while the Tugela River serves as the largest and most significant river in the province. At high elevations, winter conditions frequently freeze the upper sections of the falls, forming large ice masses attached to vertical rock faces. Accessing the summit requires hikers to climb the chain ladders, a series of fixed metal chain ladders anchored directly into steep cliff walls. These extreme topographic and climatic conditions create an isolated alpine watershed supporting endemic mountain flora not found elsewhere. As a result, Trekking through the Tugela Gorge Valley is widely regarded as one of the most demanding and distinguished hiking routes on the African continent. Belagay Tekke is a 16th-century Sufi Islamic monastery established around the year 1520 in the village of Blagaj near Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina. The complex stands beside Vrelo Bune, one of the most powerful karst springs in Europe, reaching peak discharges of about 43,000 liters per second. This spring forms a deep turquoise pool in front of the monastery, maintaining cold temperatures year-round while feeding the fast-moving Buna River. The structure is positioned directly beneath a vertical cliff, rising roughly 656 feet, creating a naturally sheltered setting against rockfall and weather exposure. A wooden balcony extends above the flowing water, and local residents traditionally lower baskets of drinks into the river for natural refrigeration. Despite its timber frame and plastered walls, the monastery has withstood repeated floods and rock slides for nearly 5 centuries since its construction. Valley of Geysers contains the second highest concentration of geysers in the world, with about 90 active vents and hundreds of hot springs clustered within a narrow valley. This density creates an interconnected geothermal system, including a rare vent that, after erupting, immediately pulls water back underground with a distinct boiling sound. The rapid recharge maintains constant subterranean pressure, which explains why, after a 2007 landslide buried 2/3 of the valley, geothermal force fractured the debris and formed new vents instead of shutting down. Because of stable heat and mineral-rich water, the surrounding reserve records one of the highest brown bear densities on Earth. Layers of geyserite combined with thermophilic bacteria produce surface colors ranging from pale pink to deep black across the terrain. With no road access, visitors arrive only by helicopter and must remain on elevated wooden walkways to protect the fragile geothermal crust. Munnar is one of the rare remaining regions preserving the Shola forest and montane grassland ecosystem, a natural water retention system that supplies millions of people in the plains below. Near the town center, Kulukumalai is recognized as the highest tea plantation in the world, where tea grows under low air pressure conditions that influence its distinct flavor profile. Although located in the tropical state of Kerala, winter temperatures in Munnar can drop below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, forming thin frost layers on tea leaves during early mornings. The region is a primary habitat of the Nilgiri tahr, an endemic mountain goat of the Western Ghats known for its ability to climb steep cliffs and currently classified as endangered. The rarest experience here is witnessing the Neelakurinji bloom once every 12 years, when the hills of Munnar are entirely covered in blue-purple across a vast scale unmatched anywhere else on Earth, with the next bloom expected around 2030. Alaska is an alien planet where collapsing cliffs once generated a mega tsunami over 1,640 feet high, scraping everything off the mountainsides. Deep hidden beneath the frozen lakes of this violent world are millions of beautifully sealed, pure methane bubbles waiting to erupt into colossal pillars of fire. Completely contrasting with that fury is the deadly silence on the white snow where the lynx glides like a ghost, thanks to enormous paws functioning as natural snowshoes. This apex predator can turn into a motionless ice statue for hours to launch a lightning-fast strike at a deadly distance. This impressive biological weapon helps the lynx precisely pinpoint every faint heartbeat of prey hiding beneath over 3 feet of thick snow. Velika Planina is unlike anywhere else on Earth, appearing as a forgotten village of giants floating adrift on the clouds of the Slovenian Alps. The landscape is dominated by over 140 wooden herdsman huts with pitch-black spruce dome roofs stretching down to touch the ground, creating a mysterious architecture never seen before. In the spring, vision is completely deceived as millions of crocus flowers bloom simultaneously, turning the entire plateau into a surreal purple ocean that submerges every path. Although the lush green grass feeds massive herds of livestock, the porous limestone soil here swallows every drop of rain, forcing people to descend into deep caves to harvest snow and ice from the previous winter. A unique cultural secret found only here is Trench cheese, which is not meant for eating, but is shaped by young men to resemble female breasts, then dried and intricately carved. This serves as a gift to their beloved as an eternal vow, proving the existence of an ancient, nomadic culture that still survives amidst the modern world. Grand Canyon Ratchaburi is a man-made canyon formed from an abandoned soil and rock quarry in Chom Bueng District, Thailand. Within only a few decades after mining operations ceased, accumulated rainwater filled the deep pits and transformed the former industrial site into a layered system of lakes and exposed cliffs. The water appears emerald or deep blue due to chemical reactions between clay minerals and natural algae, even though the primary source is rainwater. Beneath the calm surface, some lakes reach depths of dozens of meters because of the original excavation foundations, creating hidden physical risk not visible from above. The orange-red laterite cliffs display clear, horizontal stratification and irregular column formations shaped by erosion. The site is not located along a major highway and lacks large directional signage, requiring visitors to walk along narrow dirt paths on the cliff edges to access the full canyon view. Grossglockner High Alpine Road is one of the steepest mountain roads in Europe and has long served as a rigorous testing ground for braking systems, engines, and climbing performance of major global car manufacturers. The route was completed in 5 years from 1930 to 1935, built by more than 3,000 workers using basic tools under blizzard conditions and extreme alpine terrain. Instead of cutting straight through the mountain, engineer Franz Wallach designed the road to curve along the natural alpine slopes, preserving the original landscape formation. The road features 36 numbered hairpin bends marked with precise elevation signs, turning each curve into a measurable stage of the ascent. Every year, crews remove between 21 million and 28 million cubic feet of snow to reopen the pass for summer, and at Kaiser Franz Josefs Höhe stands the highest elevation vintage car exhibition in the world, dedicated to vehicles that once conquered this route. Auckland Lake is considered the highest open-air human burial site in the world, located above 16,400 feet in the Himalayas. Within a shallow depression, only about 6 feet deep, researchers have identified remains of roughly 300 to 800 individuals scattered across the lakebed and shoreline. Permanent freezing temperatures created natural preservation conditions, leaving some skeletons with hair, fingernails, and soft tissue still attached after centuries. Alongside the bones, artifacts such as spears, glass jewelry, leather footwear, and wooden objects have been recovered in remarkable condition. Because the lake freezes in winter and thaws in summer, the skeletons repeatedly surface and submerge, producing a rare seasonal exposure cycle. DNA analysis indicates that two distinct groups from South Asia and the Mediterranean, separated by thousands of years, died at this exact small location, which today can only be reached after several days of high-altitude trekking through steep forest and thin air terrain. Kardung La is recognized by Guinness and the Government of India as the highest motorable road in the world, with an official elevation of about 18,379 feet. At this altitude, the surrounding terrain consists of barren rocky slopes, minimal vegetation, permanent snow peaks, thin oxygen levels, and intense ultraviolet radiation. Because of these extreme conditions, a small military medical post operates at the summit, providing oxygen and emergency care for altitude-related cases. Visitors are advised not to remain longer than 15 to 20 minutes, as the risk of high-altitude pulmonary or cerebral edema increases rapidly with prolonged exposure. Temperatures can shift abruptly from strong sunlight to below freezing within minutes when cloud cover blocks solar radiation, complicating driving conditions. Constructed in 1976 by the Border Roads Organization, the route requires constant snow clearance and surface rebuilding due to thawing ice, landslides, and avalanches, and it remains the only official access road to the Nubra and Shyok valleys. Fanal Forest is regarded as one of the most cinematic forests in the world due to its shifting light conditions and unusual landscape structure. The ancient till trees do not grow upright, but instead twist, bend, and interlock their branches, forming a dense canopy network across the plateau. Moss, lichens, and wet ferns cover nearly every surface, including trunks, branches, and soil, sustained by constant atmospheric humidity. Many tree bases have massive circumferences with dark, rugged bark and hollowed interiors shaped by long-term erosion, yet their biological systems remain active for centuries. When strong storms knock a trunk to the ground, it often develops new roots and secondary stems, enabling a form of vegetative cloning that preserves the forest structure over time. Because ocean fog can rise rapidly onto the plateau, moving from a sunny coastline to Fanal can result in an immediate shift to a colder, dim, and fully mist-covered environment within minutes. Aletsch Glacier is the largest and longest glacier in the entire Alps and holds roughly 1/5 of Switzerland's total ice volume. Its estimated mass is about 11 billion tons of ice, equivalent in weight to approximately 72,500,000 Boeing 747 aircraft. If the entire ice body melted, the resulting water could supply 1 liter per day to the global population for more than 3 consecutive years. The glacier surface is deeply fractured with thousands of crevasses, while the ice continues to flow at roughly 656 feet per year near Concordia Platz. Current melting rates exceed forward movement, causing the glacier tongue to retreat measurably over recent decades. At the Concordia Hut, built in 1877, visitors now climb more than 460 steps from the ice surface due to thinning, providing a visible metric of the glacier's reduction. The Amazon is home to more than 10% of all known species on Earth, creating one of the highest concentrations of biodiversity on the planet. During the rainy season, river levels rise between 30 and 40 feet, transforming thousands of square miles of forest into a flooded ecosystem where piranhas swim among tree trunks and vegetation has evolved to survive prolonged submersion. Within this environment, the scarlet ibis stands out with its bright red plumage formed by a crustacean-rich diet, and when thousands take flight together, the sky above the canopy shifts color with each synchronized movement. In the upper canopy layer, the golden lion tamarin, with its distinctive golden mane, moves across branches, representing one of the most protected endemic primates in the region. As night falls, the ocelot, marked by a unique coat pattern and nearly silent steps, dominates the forest floor, while the eyelash viper coils on branches with scale projections above its eyes, ready to strike with potent venom. This multi-layered biological structure positions the Amazon as both a center of evolutionary development and a climate-regulating system essential to global environmental balance. Lenghu Mars Camp is described as the loneliest place in China, positioned in the center of an uninhabited zone hundreds of miles from the nearest city and fully detached from populated infrastructure. The absence of vegetation or visible life distorts perception of time and scale, making the landscape resemble a prehistoric Earth or a future colony on Mars, rather than a modern plateau. The camp stands within the largest and most concentrated Yardang landform field in China, where thousands of wind-carved clay pillars rise as sharp, eroded formations. The desert surface is dominated by continuous brown and dark red tones with no visible green cover, reinforcing the arid and exposed environment. The entire base follows an aerospace design language with silver, white capsule units limited to roughly 60 to 70 sleeping modules to preserve controlled isolation. Visitors wear simulated spacesuits, exit through an airlock-style chamber, and conduct staged missions such as soil sampling or water source searches across the barren Yardang terrain. Badain Jaran emerges as a surreal intersection where the highest sand towers in the world embrace hundreds of diamond-like lakes. Legend has it that the land is named after a shepherd named Badain, who discovered this hidden paradise while straying into the dead lands after his herd. Amidst the scorching aridity, over 140 never-drying lakes create a magical ecosystem with shades of emerald green or brilliant pink. Instead of shifting with the wind, deep underground moisture has locked the grains together, allowing these colossal structures to stand firm through thousands of years of history. The natural symphony becomes even more mysterious as the wind sweeps through the dunes, emitting booming sounds resembling war drums or aircraft engines. Accentuating this wild beauty is an ancient temple standing in solitude beside a lake, a testament to resilience amidst the vast sea of sand. Kibera holds the unwanted title of the largest urban slum in Africa and is one of the biggest in the world regarding population density within a tiny area. From above, this place appears as a giant reddish-brown scar woven from billions of rusty metal sheets stacked upon each other, stretching as far as the eye can see. The roofs are packed so tightly that they leave no visible gaps, creating a sea of rusted iron covering the entire cramped living space. The irony of creation reaches its peak when just a thin wall away lies the lush green royal golf course of the elite, creating the most rugged boundary between rich and poor in the world. Life here is so harsh that minimal sanitary needs become a luxury, forcing residents to use plastic bags to handle their personal needs. These waste-filled bags are thrown onto roofs, creating the haunting phenomenon of flying toilets alongside black canals winding through every mud wall. Rio Tinto hosts a rare extremophile microbial ecosystem and is considered a unique natural biological laboratory on Earth. The river water contains such high acidity and metal concentration that stains on fabric are nearly permanent, and a common coin can corrode after being submerged for a short period. Even without human mining activity, the river would remain red and acidic due to the natural oxidation cycle of sulfide ores, while mining only accelerates a process that has existed for millions of years. The water shifts from deep red to purple or orange depending on iron and dissolved metal concentration along different sections. With more than 5,000 years of continuous extraction from the Bronze Age through the Roman Empire to modern industry, the site records one of the longest sustained mining histories in the world. Sewell Mining Town is the only mining settlement in the world planned without roads for motor vehicles, where internal movement relies entirely on a massive network of stairways attached to the slopes of the Andes Mountains. Instead of a paved central avenue, the backbone of the town is a giant staircase rising directly from the railway station at the base to the upper residential zones, organizing the settlement vertically rather than horizontally. Its spatial layout reflected social hierarchy, with American engineers and managers living at the highest elevations, while local workers occupied lower tiers along the mountainside. The interlocking walkways allow you to exit the fourth floor of one building and step directly into the first floor of another positioned higher due to dramatic elevation differences. Timber frame buildings built in the American balloon frame style were modified to withstand steep gradients and Chilean earthquakes, and painted in red, yellow, blue, and purple that contrast sharply with winter snow or grey rock in summer. Burj Al Babas concentrates the highest density of abandoned castles in the world within a compact area, with almost no gardens or private spacing between structures. The project included nearly 600 villas, built with 100% identical exterior designs, forming one of the most uniform architectural developments ever constructed. With an estimated investment of about $200 million United States dollars, financial collapse halted construction, and it became one of the most expensive failed real estate projects in Turkey. Although marketed as a luxury residential resort, the site has never hosted permanent residents, and most buildings remain unfinished. Inside many units, there are only raw concrete shells, staircases without railings, and incomplete electrical systems sharply contrasting with the ornate facades. In winter, snow covers the identical pointed roofs, and the entire complex appears like a frozen architectural replica set in an empty valley. Aogashima Island is recognized as one of the most complete and rare examples of a volcano within a volcano structure ever documented. Administrative offices are located inside the massive outer caldera, meaning daily life unfolds on top of an active geothermal system. Although administratively part of Tokyo, it is the most remote and hardest to access territory within the metropolitan jurisdiction, where weather and ocean conditions dictate transportation schedules more than human planning. Most residents share the same address, Aogashima Mura Mubanchi, meaning land without street numbers, and mail is delivered accurately based solely on personal names because the community is extremely small. Since the island is surrounded by steep cliffs and lacks a natural harbor, fishing boats must be lifted by crane onto elevated platforms to avoid heavy waves. With ferry cancellations reaching about 50% and a helicopter limited to 9 passengers per day, reaching Aogashima depends more on natural conditions than on any visitor's itinerary. Pasu Konus Mountains is the most photographed landmark along the Karakoram Highway, the highest paved international road linking Pakistan and China, where sharp limestone spires rise beyond 19,600 feet above sea level. When you see the words "Welcome to Pasu" appear along the Karakoram Highway, it is not just a greeting, it is a warning that you are entering a land of the impossible. The formation is not a single massif, but a sequence of symmetrical triangular peaks aligned side by side, creating a blade-like skyline above the Hunza Valley. Although surrounding summits remain permanently snow-covered, snow rarely settles on the tips of Pasu cones because the near-vertical slopes force any accumulation to slide away almost instantly. Standing beside a long, straight stretch of highway near Gulmit, the range forms a direct and unobstructed visual axis for travelers. At sunset, low, angled light turns the grey rock surface into a brief golden blaze for a few minutes before the entire formation sinks back into the cold shadow of the Karakoram. The Fairy Meadows Road is a crazy journey, taking you from the brink of death straight into the arms of fairies, where the planet's most dangerous road leads to the foot of the majestic Killer Mountain. This is a contract with the Grim Reaper on a steep rocky path 10 miles long, so narrow it barely fits a single wheel, winding beside abysses thousands of feet deep, hand-carved by locals. Tourists are strictly forbidden from driving themselves and must entrust their lives to native Sheena drivers with supreme skills to conquer these unshielded curves. This road is the only escape, leading you to a direct view of the massive ice and snow of Nanga Parbat, standing 26,660 feet high, the 9th highest mountain in the world, nicknamed the Man-Eater. At the end of the journey, where all motorized vehicles become useless, you are forced to trek or ride a horse deep into the fairy meadows, where there is no cell service, only the sound of the great wilderness. Water Yardan Geopark is the only documented flooded desert Yardang landscape in the world, where eroded landforms stand within open water rather than dry sand. The combined action of desert wind and wave erosion continuously reshapes the clay islands, preventing any structure from remaining permanent. As a result, formations resembling ruined castles, whales, or human faces are not fixed sculptures, but products of ongoing dual erosion. Despite extreme salinity and harsh conditions, the lake attracts tens of thousands of migratory birds each autumn, especially wild ducks, earning it the name Sky Duck Lake. The water shifts from turquoise to deep blue throughout the day, depending on sunlight angle and dissolved minerals from the basin. Because the lake relies entirely on glacial meltwater and seasonal floods, strong evaporation can drain it, while rising water can collapse stone pillars, leaving the entire landscape in a constantly temporary state. On this planet, there are places so strange that the moment you see them, you wonder how they can be real. In some places, people live on water or squeeze into rooms so small they feel suffocating. Or airports cut straight across busy roads. Some places are so cold that breath can freeze in the air, while deep forests force people to build their homes high above the ground. They are not strange only because of how they look, but because of the way people and nature create completely different worlds together. In this video, we will explore some of the most special places on Earth, where reality can sometimes feel harder to believe than imagination. From a distance, Dargavs looks like a white stone village on a mountain slope, but it is actually a massive necropolis containing more than 10,000 human skeletons. The complex consists of 99 stone crypts with stepped pyramid roofs built from overlapping grey stone slabs. In the 18th century, when plague swept through the region, many infected families carried food into their ancestral crypts to isolate themselves and slowly die inside. For centuries, the dead were placed through small openings, causing new bodies to pile over older remains and form thick layers of bones inside each stone structure. To reach Dargavs, people must travel through the Giselden Gorge, a narrow winding route along steep cliffs that is often threatened by landslides. Most disturbing of all, some campers near the valley have reported hearing wind passing through the crypt openings at night, creating deep sounds like cries echoing from the city of the dead. What would happen if the ground beneath your home were made entirely from rotting weeds that could sink into the lake at any moment? Would you dare spend a night there? Because that is exactly how people survive on the Euro's floating islands. The entire foundation of these islands is built from layers of totora reeds stacked together, while the lower layers remain underwater and constantly decompose. Instead of forming one large settlement, the Euro's people divided the area into about 120 small islands, each supporting only 3 to 10 families. Their main transportation boats are also made from dried reeds, tightly bound together and shaped like long, ancient water creatures. The islands sit on Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable freshwater lake in the world, forcing residents to live in thin air and harsh environmental conditions. The Euros cook directly on highly flammable dry reeds, meaning a single uncontrolled spark could burn the entire settlement in the middle of the lake. There are tribes in the world where people possess physical features that seem almost unbelievable. Welcome to the Vadoma tribe and its people with 2-toed feet. In this community, a large number of residents are born with ectrodactyly, a condition that removes the 3 middle toes and leaves only 2 large toes forming a V shape. Although the feet appear unusual, the 2-toed structure helps them balance on loose sand, slippery rocks, and narrow cracks, while climbing or hunting. In the middle of Africa's largest freshwater lake, there exists a rock so small it seems unbelievable, yet it has been compressed into a dense micro-city known as Magingo Island. Nearly the entire surface of the island is covered by corrugated metal and rusted zinc shacks, where about 500 to 1,000 people live packed together at the same time to survive through fishing. From above, the island looks like a floating mass of metal on the lake, with buildings pressed together so tightly that there is almost no clear road or open space left. Even with such a large concentration of people, the island has no drainage system, no waste treatment, and no proper space for sewage or trash storage. Fish remains, household garbage, and human waste are all discharged directly into the lake, turning the island into a potential hotspot for cholera and typhoid outbreaks. Magingo also sits near an overlapping boundary zone between Kenya and Uganda. So fishermen from both countries live there, fish there, and jointly manage the island through a mixed committee. Guyaju Caves is an abandoned ancient infrastructure complex that does not appear in any official historical records of China. The complex contains 117 rooms carved directly into the steep rock cliffs in a canyon northwest of Beijing. Many stairways, ceilings, and entrances inside the site are noticeably smaller than the body dimensions of modern adults. From a distance, the cliffside resembles a giant stone beehive filled with stacked square openings overlooking the dry valley below. No one knows exactly who built the site or why the entire population that once lived there disappeared without leaving clear traces behind. Several sections of Guyaju are permanently sealed off, and visitors are strictly forbidden from entering those hidden areas. Imagine a city capable of hiding tens of thousands of people underground and remaining forgotten for centuries. Derinkuyu is exactly that place. The city was forgotten until 1963, when a local man accidentally broke through a wall in his basement. Located about 85 meters deep, Derinkuyu has 18 levels and once hid around 20,000 people in complete darkness. To survive underground for months, residents created water wells, food stores, animal shelters, and a closed ventilation system. The tunnels connecting the levels were deliberately carved extremely low and narrow, forcing people to crouch through dark, cold, and poorly lit stone passages. Today, only about 8 of its 18 levels have been opened, while the deepest sections remain flooded or too dangerous to reach. Casa do Penedo is often described as one of the strangest houses on Earth, built by wedging the structure directly between 4 massive granite boulders. Inside, the layout follows the natural rock formations, featuring a eucalyptus wood sofa weighing about 772 pounds, with stairways and railings carved to fit the stone precisely. There are no artificial gardens surrounding the house, only wild grass, scattered rocks, and open sky, creating a sense of total isolation from the modern world. Because of its remote location and unwanted attention, the owner installed bullet-resistant windows and reinforced steel frames to protect the building. Despite sitting next to a large wind farm, the house has no connection to the power grid, and relies entirely on candlelight for illumination. As visitor numbers increased, the owner stopped living here full-time, and part of the house was converted into a small museum. Port-au-Prince is one of the most dangerous cities in the world today, shaped by the history of Haiti's successful slave uprising. In many districts, fighting between armed gangs has made gunfire and kidnapping risk a constant part of urban life. On the hillside, the Jalousie slum is covered with brightly painted houses, creating a visual shell that contrasts with the poverty and harsh living conditions inside. In abandoned infrastructure zones, trash and old tires are arranged into barricades that divide territory between rival factions. In daily trade, residents still use the term Haitian dollar, even though this currency does not exist in physical form. The National Cemetery of Port-au-Prince is also a major spiritual space where Vodou rituals are performed to connect death, belief, and social life together. Could you believe that a tiny village from fairy tales actually exists? The Kingdom of the Little People is exactly that kind of place. This area operates as a closed voluntary community where hundreds of people with dwarfism leave modern cities to live in an isolated, mountainous zone. Only adults no taller than 4 feet 3 inches are allowed to enter, work, and reside inside the area. Instead of standard houses, the reinforced concrete buildings are shaped into giant mushrooms, twisted tree trunks, and structures modeled after fairy tale settings. At the center stands a large artificial stone castle where residents perform and parade under the observation of visiting tourists. To maintain electricity, water, and food supplies, the place opens daily and lets visitors pay to observe life inside the community. Aoshima Cat Island covers less than 0.5 square kilometers, making it a rare place where cats vastly outnumber humans. Fewer than 5 elderly residents remain on the island, but they share the abandoned space with more than 200 cats. Decades ago, fishermen brought cats to the island to kill rats that damaged fishing nets. But when the fishing industry declined and people left, the cat population grew out of control. Unlike the modern image of Japan, Aoshima has almost no commercial infrastructure, while many abandoned wooden houses are covered by vines and have turned the village into a small ghost town. As food sources on the island declined, rescue groups from the mainland had to intervene and sterilize more than 200 cats in 2018. Although they live freely outdoors, the cats here have almost completely lost their hunting instincts and now depend nearly entirely on packaged food shipped from the mainland. High in the Himalayas of Lamjung, Nepal, this region produces mad honey containing natural neurotoxins from high mountain rhododendron forests. The world's largest honeybee, Apis dorsata laboriosa, feeds on toxic rhododendron nectar and produces honey containing granotoxin, a compound that can cause hallucinations, vomiting, muscle paralysis, and a dangerously slow heart rate when consumed in excess. To avoid predators, these giant bees do not build nests inside trees, but attach them to the underside of rock ledges on nearly vertical cliffs. Each nest is a large wax mass fixed to limestone, sometimes reaching 1.5 meters wide and holding dozens of kilograms of honey. To collect this honey, gurung hunters must hang from handmade rope ladders on high cliffs while facing attacks from tens of thousands of bees. For local communities, mad honey is not only a dangerous product, but also an important source of income in a high mountain environment with limited farming. Dubai is a megacity built directly on one of the driest and harshest stretches of the Arabian Desert. Because desert sand is too fine for many construction uses, the city is surrounded by sand but still has to import beach sand for building. From that limitation, Dubai expanded its land by dredging millions of tons of rock and sand and pouring them into the Persian Gulf to create Palm Jumeirah. On this artificial land and desert base, the 828-meter Burj Khalifa becomes the steel and glass mass that dominates the skyline, where the highest floors receive sunlight about 3 minutes longer than ground level. Beside it, the 150-meter Dubai frame represents the symbolic infrastructure built inside a city with limited natural resources. Because Dubai has no natural river or freshwater lake, most of its daily water must be made from seawater through an energy-intensive desalination system. El-Aidi Island Lodge is known as the loneliest house on Earth, standing alone in the storm-driven climate of the North Atlantic for more than 70 years. The structure was built in 1953 by a local hunting association as a shelter during puffin hunting trips for meat and feathers. No one lives here permanently, and people only land on the island for a few days each year to harvest seabirds. Elidei itself is a volcanic rock mass covering about 0.45 square kilometers, with steep, grass-covered slopes surrounded by vertical black cliffs. The house is cut off from modern infrastructure, with no power grid, running water, or internet, so basic life depends on a rainwater collection system from the roof. To reach the island, people must jump from a boat in rough waves, grip a hanging rope, and climb the slippery rock face by hand. Sapa is known as the town above the clouds because it sits on the slopes of the Huanglin Cern Range at an elevation of more than 1,500 meters. This elevation creates a distinct microclimate, causing the town to be covered by thick fog on some days, as if separated from the surrounding tropical region. Although it belongs to Southeast Asia's tropical monsoon zone, Sapa remains one of the few places in Vietnam where heavy snowfall can appear during the cold season. On the steep mountain slopes, people created a vast, terraced rice field system, turning harsh terrain into thousands of farming layers descending into the valleys. Above the town rises Fansipan at 3,143 meters, connected by a 3-cable car system that once set a Guinness World Record for the greatest elevation difference. From a remote mountain town, Sapa has become a major tourism center of northwestern Vietnam with a rapid pace of urbanization, attracting millions of domestic and international visitors every year. Coffin homes are an extreme micro-housing system located in Hong Kong, one of the richest financial centers in the world. Living space here is compressed so severely that a normal 40 square meter apartment can be divided into 20 to 30 sleeping boxes made from plywood and stacked into 2 levels to maximize occupancy. People do not rent a full room, but instead live inside wooden or metal mesh boxes measuring only about 1.5 to 2 square meters. The space is so small that many residents can only lie down or sit hunched over and cannot fully stretch their legs. Every daily activity, including eating, sleeping, and storing personal belongings, is confined inside the same dark cage-like structure. Today, more than 200,000 people in Hong Kong still survive inside these coffin homes while paying rental prices per square meter that can exceed those of luxury villas. Body is an abandoned ghost town preserved as one of the most authentic open-air museums of the American Gold Rush era. In the late 19th century, it was once a booming gold mining center with more than 10,000 residents, but the collapse of the mining industry forced people to leave behind nearly all their belongings. More than 100 buildings in Bodie have never been restored or repainted, leaving faded wooden houses and twisted structures to decay naturally over time. The town stands isolated in the cold desert region of the Sierra Nevada, where the barren landscape has almost no large trees to block the wind. Surrounding Bodie are massive scars left by mining activity, including deep tunnels, giant piles of excavated rock, and rusted ore crushing machines. The town is also famous for the body curse, as many visitors believe that anyone who takes even a small object from the site will suffer bad luck afterward. Sun Dung Cave is known as the largest cave on Earth, with a scale far beyond any other known cave system. Its largest chamber rises more than 200 meters high and about 150 meters wide, large enough to fit an entire New York City block with multiple 40-story buildings in situ. This enormous size creates its own microclimate, with fog, cold mist, and circulating winds that form independently from the weather outside. The cave floor is cut apart by fast-flowing underground rivers that have eroded the limestone along a geological fault for millions of years and formed giant stalagmites and stalactites. At the sinkhole known as the Garden of Eden, the collapsed ceiling allows sunlight to enter and supports a real tropical forest growing deep underground. Sun Dung Cave is now under strict control and allows only about 1,000 visitors each year to join limited expeditions in order to protect the untouched ecosystem inside the cave. Tianducheng was built as an almost exact replica of glamorous Paris in the middle of Hangzhou, China. This is not an amusement park, but a real settlement with a 108-meter Eiffel Tower, Champs-Élysées Avenue, and a Versailles-style fountain square. The project was built in 2007, with the expectation of becoming home to about 10,000 wealthy residents. Because of its isolated location, this infrastructure block was once left empty for many years and viewed as a ghost city. The Eiffel Tower replica became the biggest landmark, but it often appears through the grey smog of the industrial urban area. By 2021, The metro line directly connected to central Hangzhou had brought new residents in to fill the empty space. Makoko is where hundreds of thousands of people have built an entire city on the black waters of the Lagos Lagoon, while remaining almost cut off from basic mainland infrastructure. This slum is a matrix of tens of thousands of shacks made from scrap wood, rusted metal sheets, and plastic tarps, all supported by countless wooden stilts driven into the swamp floor. On this polluted water surface, residents still maintain their own social system with floating markets, schools, transport canoes, and internal rules of daily life. Movement inside Makoko depends on narrow canals where the water turns into a thick black liquid formed by engine oil, plastic waste, and organic sewage. Because there is no underground sewer system, household waste drops directly through wooden floors into the lagoon below. Although the homes float entirely on water, survival here depends on canoes bringing fresh water from the mainland and selling it by plastic containers. Yangon holds the record as the narrowest city in the world, where the tightest point is only about 30 meters wide, but still supports nearly 300,000 people. This extreme compression comes from its position between two vertical mountain walls, while the Quan River cuts directly through the valley floor. When there is not enough land to expand, many apartment floors extend beyond the rock edge and place their weight on concrete pillars standing in the muddy river water. Because the horizontal space is locked, 10 to 15-story buildings are forced to stand tightly together, forming a concrete canyon inside the natural mountain gorge. Even the only railway line has to pass through a tunnel carved into the mountain core because the city has almost no open ground left. During the rainy season, rising river water swallows most of the support pillars, making Yangon look like a city suspended above the rushing current. Shenzhen was once a coastal marshland with aging fishing village infrastructure and only about 30,000 residents, but it was pushed into a megacity of more than 17 million people in about 40 years. To create space for high-rise concrete blocks, many natural hills were flattened, while huge amounts of rock and soil were dumped into the sea to reclaim bays and reshape the coastline. Because the city was built almost from zero, its urban surface has almost no ancient ruins or historic temples and is instead covered by a dense matrix of reflective glass. On this new urban base, Shenzhen became the first city to fully electrify its public bus network with more than 16,000 electric buses. Alongside this clean transport system, the city also develops delivery robots, robo-taxis, and other urban automation models. These technologies operate through sensors, cameras, digital maps, and artificial intelligence to read streets, avoid obstacles, and move through dense urban environments. Havana is the only city still trapped in 1950, where millions of people continue modern life through the old houses and machines of the previous century. Instead of modern glass towers, the urban landscape is dominated by Spanish colonial stone and brick buildings slowly decaying under the tropical sun. On the streets, more than 60,000 cars made before 1959 are not kept in museums but still work every day as public transport vehicles. Because of material isolation, many old American cars are kept alive with Soviet tractor engines or fishing boat engines installed under their hoods. When digital access was limited, residents created manual data sharing systems to exchange films, music, and software. Even basic food supply is controlled through the Libreta ration book, which defines how much rice, sugar, and eggs each person can buy every month. Tondo is one of the most crowded and polluted slum districts in the world, yet part of it carries the deeply ironic name Happy Land. With more than 80,000 people packed into less than 1 square kilometer, most residents have almost no personal space left. To survive, tens of thousands of people build homes from rusted metal sheets, rotting wood, and industrial waste directly on top of massive decomposing garbage fields. The canals in the area are so filled with mud and compressed plastic waste that the water surface has nearly disappeared completely. At the Smoky Mountain dump site, millions of tons of organic waste once produced methane gas that kept the landfill burning for years. Beyond sorting trash, many residents also survive on pagpag, discarded fried chicken scraps taken from fast food garbage, cleaned, boiled, or refried, and then sold again as cheap meals. Tawi-Tawi is the southernmost province of the Philippines, made up of more than 100 islands and coral reefs scattered near the waters bordering Malaysia. Because it has no road connection to the rest of the country, it exists as a territory separated from the Philippine mainland system. Its coastal settlements are not built on stable land, but form matrices of wooden stilt houses driven into the Sulu Sea, a region long linked to piracy, kidnapping, and armed conflict. Many Sama Bajau residents still maintain life on boats or stilt houses, with daily survival directly tied to the sea. With no paved roads in many floating communities, movement mainly happens by wooden canoe, through narrow water lanes between the houses. Tawi-Tawi is also home to Panampangan Sandbar, the longest sandbar in the Philippines, stretching about 3 kilometers but appearing for only a few hours before being submerged by the tide. McAllen is one of the cities with the highest obesity rates in the United States, where South Texas heat and border infrastructure together create a biological prison. Although it sits inside a large agricultural region, many residents still have easier access to cheap fast food than to fresh, nutritious food. During summer, temperatures often rise above 40 degrees Celsius, making outdoor walking uncomfortable and forcing people to depend almost entirely on air-conditioned homes, cars, and offices. The border wall also creates a strange paradox, where some American families live on American soil while their homes remain outside the security fence. McAllen also lies along a major migration route from Central America, causing the area to fill with checkpoints, sensors, and Border Patrol forces. Daikoku is a parking area locked between the looping expressways of Yokohama and is widely linked to the real-world atmosphere seen in Tokyo Drift. In official planning terms, it is simply a highway rest stop where drivers can eat, refuel, and take breaks inside the massive expressway network. Over time, however, underground car communities transform the site into a spontaneous gathering place for supercars, sports cars, and illegally modified vehicles. Although many cars here violate Japanese inspection laws through excessive noise, lowered suspensions, or structural modifications, police often tolerate the gatherings while still carrying out occasional crackdowns. Gibraltar International Airport is often listed among the world's most extreme airports because it sits on a very cramped peninsula in southern Europe. It is the only commercial airport in the world where a 4-lane road cuts directly across the runway. Every day, cars, bicycles, and pedestrians once moved across the same strip of asphalt used by passenger aircraft for takeoff and landing. Because the peninsula is so small, the runway, measuring less than 1,800 meters, is forced to extend toward the sea and sit between two open bodies of water. This position exposes aircraft to strong gusts during approach and departure. Whenever a flight arrived or departed, this former traffic artery could be closed for about 10 to 15 minutes, temporarily freezing the entire flow of vehicles across the Gibraltar border. Neftdaşları holds a Guinness World Record as the first and oldest offshore oil platform city on Earth, marking the moment humans began extracting resources directly from the ocean floor. To create a physical foundation in the Caspian Sea, people sank 7 giant oil tankers onto the seabed as the first support base. Its iron grid road network once stretched about 300 kilometers, but more than 75% has been broken by sea storms and submerged. From above, this city has no clear urban core and spreads like a distorted steel web following the oil veins below. For decades, the site that once held more than 5,000 workers was a secret facility erased from world maps. Although the infrastructure is now heavily degraded, around 30 million tons of oil reserves still force people to maintain the patched existence of this steel city. Unlike ordinary highways, Zojila is managed and cleared by India's Border Roads Organization under the Ministry of Defense, because the snowfall here is destructive. The pass lies in the Himalayas in Ladakh at an elevation of about 11,578 feet, and it is known for steep mountain walls and snow walls that can reach about 66 feet in early spring. Because the road is too narrow and runs beside deep drop-offs, authorities force traffic to move in, alternating one-way flows to stop vehicles from colliding and falling down the mountain. Crossing Zojila means entering the Dras Valley, the second coldest inhabited place in the world after Siberia, where winter temperatures can fall to minus 76 degrees Fahrenheit. The thing that often stops traffic here is not a broken truck, but massive herds of Pashmina goats and sheep owned by nomads, sometimes numbering in the thousands and covering the whole road. To reduce that danger, India is building the Zojila Tunnel, a two-way tunnel about 8.8 miles long beneath the mountain, so vehicles can keep moving even during snowstorms. Welcome to Oymyakon, a land where death is not yet the final release. The village sits on permafrost as deep as about 4,900 feet, so burial must begin by burning fires on the ground for days to soften each layer of ice. Oymyakon holds the record as the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth, sitting at 2,460 feet above sea level and trapped between two mountain ranges that hold heavy cold air at the bottom of the valley. In winter, cars parked outdoors must keep their engines running continuously because the oil can freeze if the engine stays off too long. The frozen ground prevents vegetables and wheat from growing, so fresh food must be brought in from elsewhere at extremely high prices. Access to Oymyakon is also very difficult because the road into the village crosses vast frozen wilderness areas of Siberia. There is a place where tens of thousands of residents live, sleep, and work directly inside homes filled with waste from floor to ceiling. And that place is Manshiat Nasa. This slum lies in Cairo, where the sanitation burden of a megacity with more than 20 million people has been pushed onto the local garbage-collecting community. Every day, residents sort waste by hand inside homes, on rooftops, and in alleys, creating a recycling rate that can reach 80 to 90%. From above, Manshiat Nasa appears as a dense block of unfinished red brick buildings 4 to 5 stories high and compressed into a thick urban maze. This community once raised hundreds of thousands of pigs inside the neighborhood to consume the city's organic waste. Okinawa is a blue zone, the place with the highest concentration of people living over 100 years old on Earth. In villages such as Ojimi, seeing people between 90 and 100 years old still gardening, riding bicycles, or practicing martial arts every day is completely normal. The world's oldest recorded woman, was also born in Okinawa and lived to 117 years old. Many studies suggest that the region's remarkable longevity comes from a low-calorie diet rich in fish, seaweed, purple sweet potatoes, and soybeans, combined with a slow-paced lifestyle and strong social connections. Okinawa is also called the Galapagos of the East because of its ancient forests and giant tree roots rising from the mud like enormous skeletons. Offshore Okinawa lies an underwater stone structure about 82 feet below the surface, with nearly perfect flat walls and sharp angles, still debated as either an extreme geological formation or the remains of a lost civilization.